As I take my seat and find the microphone, I want to quickly disrupt this panel. Because we're constrained for time, we're going to break the script a little bit and do things differently. I'd like 2 quick hands, just so we can get and integrate 2 questions into the panel, because we won't have time to go to the Q&A, and we'll have that as part of our discussion. I've got a big hand, flailing arms over there. If I can get somebody to quickly take a microphone to the gentleman at the back. Short, sharp, sweet, and to the point. Please, let's give him a microphone. On this side of the room, do I have a quick hand? Flailing? Yes, is that a flailing hand? Madam. Oh, it's a gentleman. I see you, sir. All right. Please go for it. Sharp and short. Let's make sure it's on.
Okay, so my name is Abdelhamid Sharif. I'm doing my master's here at the UC, but also I have another hat, being a co-founder in a startup that uses AI in agriculture. There are fundamental issues about usage of the AI. AI is not cheap to develop. That's number one. Number two, it requires an infrastructure. So for example, for us, one of the challenges we have is that when you get the sensors, the components, to run the hardware that's supported by AI, we have the problem of importation. We pay a lot of customs, duties. So when it comes to AI, you need to create an infrastructure from a governance perspective to support startups that do local innovation. I think the problem in Africa...
My good sir, can I ask for you to get us to the question?
Yeah, the local content policies on development and innovation in Africa, how we see commitment from governments when it comes to reducing the cost of innovation and making an incentive to develop local solutions rather than importing solutions from abroad. Thank you.
Fantastic question. Thank you. How do we get governments to advance the right incentives so that we are able to develop the infrastructure that enables AI deployment? Thank you so much. That final hand and only hand. Sir, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is James Mema from Impact Kenya. So my question, so that we don't take a lot of time, it was found that Grok 3 AI produces 500 tons of CO2. That's equivalent to flying 300 times from New York to London. So my question is, as we head to the new era of AI, how can we make sure that at the end we are not deep diving to climate change issues? Because the African continent will be predominantly the one that will be affected, because it produces all earth minerals that will run these data centers, but at the same time, it also provides tons of water for cooling systems. Thank you.
James, fantastic question. Thank you very much. So I'm going to bring that question into the conversation as well. It's a beautiful link between AI and the climate crisis and how that plays itself out in the African context. I can see your thinking face, Ezekiel, but you're also looking away from me. So let me start in Namibia. Let me call on the minister who's online. Minister, I've got a pointed question to you, which is the question of how is Namibia approaching the question of regulating AI? What are some of the key considerations that you are bringing into that conversation in the Namibian context? Over to you, please.
Thank you very much for the question, and a good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can, Minister.
Yes, thank you. So I think around AI regulation, especially when we know the African continent has the potential to leapfrog, like we did with so many of the technologies that preceded the continent in other continents of the world. I think we need to find a balance between regulation and innovation and ensuring that we have the safeguards necessary to have AI for public good. And I want to reflect on the first question around how we can ensure we have local innovation, incentives for startups in country, ensuring we have local content policies for minerals in the country, that we ensure there is value addition to those minerals and that the solutions are developed in country as opposed to shipping out the minerals and then bringing back the components to the continent to develop the modems and models for AI. So there's a lot of government, policies, regulation, legislature that needs to take a lead where this is concerned, but cognizant of the fact that we do not hamper or we do not trample on innovation in the process, because AI is moving fast. Regulations have the potential to stifle it, but also legislation sometimes is unable to keep up with an ever-growing technological change in our societies. So those are some of the reflections from government. We're constantly having conversations about how to have and strike that balance.
Minister, I think it's such a powerful and a strong opening as you respond to that question. And Shikoh, I want to come to you next because I think there's a direct linkage to the question of to what extent are we seeing corporates really taking into consideration some of the beautiful things we talk about, such as integrating our cultural values, turning to traditional knowledge systems, looking for local problem-solving approaches. If you think about your experience in this field, to what extent is this local flavor and this pride around the African context a real consideration on the table? And I bring that question to you because as the minister speaks about a regulatory instrument, a policy that says you must consider the local content, does that have the capacity to change the game?
Thank you so much for having me in this beautiful sunny Cairo. And it's great to be with people that I know, Minister Emma and Oswald. Ezekiel is the only one I didn't know before this. So I wanted to just dial down on what Minister Emma has said. In April, 49 African governments signed what is called the African Declaration on AI, which basically set out an agenda on what Africa will be doing in terms of AI for the next 3 years. It was signed off by the 49 states, including the EAU and the ITU, which meant that we have a very strong agenda around AI. And it's around, some of the questions he was asking around is investing in our infrastructure, investing in our talent, building, and I'll come back to that, building our data sets, building use case and markets, and then finally our governance infrastructure without regulating the innovation work that we are doing. And coming back to data sets and talent, number one in the declaration is investing in locally built startups. Yeah. Encouraging governments to take our startups, innovators, and researchers as their first vendors, and as startups looking at government as customers. Because, I mean, let's be honest, everyone, even in San Francisco, everyone is figuring out AI. Nobody knows that. But what is stacking is Africa still has the biggest potential in AI. Why? I'll just use a bit of numbers. Everything you've been using on AI right now and touches in Africa is only 2% data set from Africa. Let that sink in. Only 2% of African data set is used to train the current Gen AI models that you're using. Yeah? And that includes Arab Africa, not just Sub-Saharan Africa. Number two, our talent is less than 1% that is involved in the development of the AI. And Ezekiel and others that are in these high-end schools are part of it. And number three is we own only one HPC, high-performing computer in Africa, and it's like next door in Morocco. I know Oswald is going to talk about some of the work that Cassava is doing, which means there's a lot of potential. I don't look this as hurdles and challenges. I look at them as potential of what Africa looks like. So we have an opportunity to reimagine what AI could look like. And the good thing about AI, you can actually reimagine it. It's not like the internet where it was very hard to think about, can I build a new internet? China has shown us that it can build a new AI. 2 weeks ago, Switzerland built a whole new model, right? France has built. India, which we can say is closest to us, has also built. But what I loved about is LATAM GPT, which is the Latin America, the Spanish ones, they've also built. What stops Africa from building its own? Based on our own cultural nuances, our language, our context, which is super important. And I'm saying this is last week, I'm going to blow our own horn, we built what we called a benchmark. And a benchmark is something that people use to measure the performance of something. It's a test.
Yeah.
And we have been used to being told, oh, OpenAI has launched its own benchmark, Google has its own benchmark. And he said, but it's not speaking of Africa. HIV, somebody was speaking, I would like to win you speaking about HIV growing to 6 extra million people in the next 2 years, which means that it's going to be 46 million people, majority in Africa, that have HIV. Guess how well the models in health are doing? Less than 2% of benchmarks and data that is training health models are taking care of HIV. Yeah. So why are we leaving all what they're called neglected tropical disease on the table and focusing on diabetes and all this, like, sorry to say, white diseases, which means that we have to start solving. And Africans are solving. So the benchmark is out there. People are testing it. We are testing it. It's been adopted by OpenAI and Google and all these people. So we can do it as Africa. I believe we can.
Shikoh, I think it's a great way of really showing us some of the practical questions and provocations we should be thinking about. Ezekiel, I was going to bring the question about the incentives to really build the infrastructure, but I think Shikoh has really spoken to that. I want to bring a different kind of question to you, is that when you look at the convergence of AI and philanthropy, these are two fields that you're researching in tandem. What do you see as the most exciting opportunity around impacting philanthropic models, impacting how we give, impacting how we make impact? What are you seeing on the horizon that you think, from a research perspective, that certainly, I'm going to use a word that was banned yesterday, that's a big bet?
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you also to the organizer for the invitation. Usually when I receive these kind of questions, the first thing I used to do is precisely to highlight the necessary reciprocity game that has to be played by two entities, AI and philanthropy. I mean the reciprocity game. Therefore, if AI, of course, can bring a certain form of transformative power to the philanthropy sectors, reciprocally, philanthropy can also play a big part in the AI development. Sure. So let us break it down together. Yes, AI grounded in African realities can literally uplift the efficiency of philanthropy. Okay. And today, when we explore the field, in the literature review, there is 3 revolutionary shifts. The first one is the precision in philanthropy, precisely due to the data intelligence. Sure. So today, AI is enabling philanthropy to be more precise due to the ability of AI to analyze vast amounts of data. Now we can a little bit be more precise on what we want to do, on what kind of initiatives we want to invest on, etc. And then the second point, or the second shift, is what we can call the decentralized network of truth. Therefore, we organize transparent ecosystem through the association between blockchain and AI, where donors can literally be in touch directly with branches, and therefore we can, avoid traditional challenges related to intermediaries that are not trustful. And then the third and the last point, and the third on, the last shift, what we can call the revolutionary shift, is in terms of the measurement, the impact measurement. So AI is also able to provide us with real data, and therefore to be able to, analyze what we have done. Based on the data of what we have done, we can adjust our strategies, etc.
So I'm hearing 3 things. I'm hearing three things, Ezekiel. If we are grounded in reciprocity, there is the opportunity of enhancing precision, of deepening transparency, and of course doing better, more accurate measurement that informs the impact, which I think, as philanthropists sitting in the room, is a fantastic opportunity worth double-clicking on. Oswald, I'm going to come to you. I can see you're looking at me with a "what is she going to bring to me" question. I want to raise an issue that Prof. Mutambara put on the table. We often talk about it as data sovereignty, and he framed it as data capitalism. So with a lot of the data being processed outside of the continent, how do we ensure that we maintain data sovereignty or at the very least, make sure that we are not falling into the trap of a new era of colonialism. Sorry, he called it data colonialism, not data capitalism. Go for it.
Thank you very much, Nozi, and welcome everyone. Thank you for having me on stage. I think the prof was very eloquent and very elaborative when he spoke about that area. I think if you look back, the idea of data residency, data protection, data sharing, collaboration around data, it comes first from a policy framework definition. A number of countries have gone ahead, like what Shikoh said, that there is a framework under AU where there is a policy that has been decided in the strategy from across Africa. I think all countries signed to that, number one. About 40 countries in Africa now have this data policy regulations and laws to help govern that. So there's a framework around policy that we start with. And this is an area that I believe the civic organization, the philanthropy organization, the NGO ecosystem needs to really participate around, because we need clear definition of what is sensitive data. We need clear definition of what are the rules and regulations around what type of data is shared and to who. Most governments have stuck to the fact that national data, health-wise, population data, they don't want it sitting outside.
Sure.
So that needs to be clearly defined. And the last bit now is the whole collaborative side of data. How do we share data between countries under different bilaterals, under different regional frameworks? The second piece that enables that is going to be infrastructure. Whether we like it or not, when Dr. Mtambara talks about AI, the key ingredient to AI is data. I think that's what we all know. They now talk about AI factories. These are factories that manufacture intelligence, right? So the critical input, if it's data, where is the factory that makes this intelligence, right? Is it sitting in Africa? Is it sitting outside Africa? One of my brothers, they was talking about infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So infrastructure is a critical enabler of this AI ecosystem, from connectivity, data centers, and this whole GPU story. I spend most of my time trying to solve for that at this moment in time. How do we bring this factory in place is what we're working with. The biggest manufacturer of this factory is actually NVIDIA. And that's why they're making a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, the new factory that we're going to see coming up, more of this infrastructure is going to be these AI factories that generate intelligence. So we need these factories on the African soil. Today, we import a lot of stuff in Africa that we consume, either clothes, either what we eat. But at the end of the day, it's being manufactured maybe in China. So the factory is not on the African continent, even on our day-to-day lifestyle today. So in AI, it's already not on this continent, but we are making a lot of efforts to bring it onto the continent, and there's a lot of pieces that speak to that. I'll address a brother's question that talked about emissions.
Yes.
You know that when the whole climate conversation was happening, the biggest fight was between China and the US. And it was because of manufacturing, and China being the largest manufacturer today. So take that same leaf and move it into this intelligence ecosystem. That factory also produces emissions. It's a factory. There's energy required, and the source of the energy is the question today. Some of it is hydro, some of it right now is moving to coal-fired stations, some of it is going to be nuclear, some of it is going to be renewable. So there is definitely going to be emissions, and it's a conversation to have. Most data centers now require sustainability benchmarks in terms of the renewable energy you're using. So there is going to be change over time, but be rest assured, this factory is going to produce emissions. The last bit I'll talk about on the data question is the mere fact that the collaborative nature of Africa is what we need to leverage on. If every country starts producing their data and they create boundaries around that, we're not going to benefit from the 4 trillion he talks about.
Yeah.
Because each and every country is going to think modular, insular, and they will not be collaborative. If this whole ecosystem is talking of the input being data, we need to sit down and have an indaba around this. What data can we share? And what guardrails do we put in place? And innovation cannot be stifled by this element of being too aggressive on looking at policies and frameworks. Let's also be very innovative in our thinking and look at it from a context. How do we create the jobs in AI if we're not going to share the data? So let's put frameworks and guardrails. Again, I'll come back to the philanthropy ecosystem. The people who are going to educate most of the people in our communities, in our schools, our children, our grandmothers, are going to be the civic organizations. They're going to be the NGOs. They have a relationship. But let's add this AI conversation to the relationship the civic society has with the ecosystem.
Fantastic. I think there was a round of applause for those contributions, Oswald. And thank you for addressing the climate question as well. We've got less than 10 minutes left on the clock, so I'm going to pull a rabbit out of a hat to get us through this. Minister, I want to just come back to you. One of the things, one of the shots fired by Oswald is this idea that it can't just be a conversation about policy and regulation. It has to be policy and regulation in the context of innovation and what we're trying to achieve. I want to bring a different question to you, Minister. One of the things that we seem to be talking about consistently on the African continent is this idea of being left behind. And if we get to this essence of why we could be left behind in this context, it oftentimes boils down to skills. From where you sit as Minister of ICT, do you see a role for AI in developing the skills that ensures that Africans are not observers of an AI revolution, but do have the capacity to lead, to play an active role, and to achieve what Prof. Mutambara put to us as a challenge, net jobs, because we've got the skills to do that? Minister, over to you.
Absolutely. We need to develop the skills. We need to ensure that governments make it a priority, especially their public institutions, that the programs being offered to young people, which we know that by the year 2040, 60% of the continent will be young. So it's an opportunity for us to leverage on that. But I must also put a caveat to say that regardless of, actually investing in skills, if our societies, our legislative environments, our economies, and the way we ensure accessing to financing for these young people who are skilled is still not properly, developed and properly managed, we will still see the skills leave the continent. Because it's no secret that we see some brain drain in some of the countries, people who have actually, taken the time to get the necessary skills of the future, of the jobs of the future, or people who have actually then gotten, the necessary scholarships through their brilliance to get the necessary skills, but unfortunately end up developing companies and countries outside of their own, because back at home, and when I say home, the African continent, we're not ready to absorb the skills. We are not ready to integrate the skilled people into our processes, into our government systems and governance systems, and our economies and societies are simply not ready to hold them. So we must, together with the skills investment, ensure that we have the necessary environment for these skills to flourish.
Minister, thank you so much. So skills give us a ticket to the game, Shikoh. It's one of the ways in which we ensure that we are not leaving people behind. Do you, or can you share one example of a strategy that is working in terms of making sure that AI spaces and are inclusive of women in particular? So we're building AI ecosystems that are inclusive of women and ensure that we're not leaving that part of the marginalized groups behind.
Thank you so much. Building up on what Minister Emma has said. So when you think about skills, you have to think of them in a continuum, yeah? So we need skills of actual users, yeah? The market itself. Because what happens is we'll build things, and I always give examples of my father. My dad is a pastor, a Christian pastor. And when I told him I'm working on AI, he told me that is the mark of the devil. And I had to walk him through, like, this is AI. This is what, he couldn't understand how technology can be able to understand a human language. It was just beyond him. And so you have to train the market. Then you have this group in the middle where we call them developers. These are people who are taking research, taking work, and converting them into something useful. So for example, whatever you're using on your phone as an AI application is being built by a developer. And on the top end, if you think of it as a pyramid, is researchers and ML engineers. These are the people who are building the IP. These are the people we lack in Africa. We need 5,000 of them by 2029 to start even winning this race. So we need to train people across this vertical. And as Oswald said, we need a lot of development sector people training the market. And one of the key things, an example and a pilot we are running thanks to funding from the Gates Foundation, is training frontline workers, healthcare workers, teachers, mostly front and agriculture and extension farmer, extension officers, because these are the people who will be directly in touch with the final user. So we just ran a pilot across 6 countries, training teachers, and these are not university teachers, these are K-12 teachers, on what is AI. Yeah, how do you use it in your not integrate it as a curriculum, is how do you use it as an individual. And then we are doing a lot, by December we'll have the results, is after we train these teachers, what happens to their teaching practice? How do they teach the young girls and the young boys in their classes? So we did the same thing a year ago with front health front health workers. And these doctors are the ones who have ended up helping us build the benchmark that I announced. Because after using AI for a while, they say this AI is not speaking my language, is not speaking about my patient, is not speaking about my diseases. So how do we improve this model to speak to my language, to my people, to my context? And that's what we ended up building. We built this benchmark with about 25 doctors, Kemri, Africa CDC, doctors who actually volunteer to say, can we make AI better for us? And that is where the inclusion comes in. And one of the key things is, once you've built skill set amongst the people who are interacting, the training downwards becomes so easy. But again, I have to emphasize that we have to invest in that 5,000 PhDs for the African continent. It is a critical piece of training that we need, and it's part of the declaration that is a commitment from African governments.
So I want to just extend that question a little bit to Oswald. Does philanthropy, or could philanthropy play, I'm going to use my favorite word, Prof, could philanthropy play a more intentional role in terms of funding the development of AI skills for the continent? And is that a conversation that you are privy of actually happening on the continent?
I think what I would say is it's already happening.
Right.
Philanthropy has always led when there was a lot of technological innovations historically, but I think they don't amplify themselves, they don't talk much about it. And what I can say is, for this to succeed, philanthropy really needs to continue their efforts. Their efforts come from actually funding the initiatives, like she mentions, on the ground, number one, through programmatic support they get from their donors and the execution on the ground. They have to also participate in developing the curriculums that drive the agenda around this. They know the people, they hang out with the people. They are the best people placed to interact and drive adoption, in my view. On the policy side, they need to finance and fund that piece, because this policy I'm talking about, for it to be understood by the masses, they need to have that engagement with the ecosystem. Even on infrastructure, they need to participate. Yeah. And the most important piece, I think, that is going to be very critical is, how do they also infuse this AI into their execution?
Sure.
Because if they do that from their investments, I think adoption will then cascade to all the beneficiaries and the whole ecosystem. So they definitely are already doing it. They can keep on doing more. And I think they're going to be the critical catalyst to the success of AI adoption for the majority of the world.
For the majority world. I absolutely love it. So we're going to close off with you, Ezekiel, and thank you for bringing the theme back into the conversation, Oswald. I think what we're hearing in this piece of the conversation is, how do we democratize access to AI? We've spoken about women, we've spoken about skills generally. How do we make sure, given the infrastructure challenges that were raised by the gentleman there, that rural populations are not traded off for the benefit of urban populations? Quick comment, and then we close.
Yes, a very quick comment. I think when we are trying to face the idea of democratizing AI literacy, the first thing to handle is how we frame the content of this democratization, right? When I'm having a conversation with my grandma, who is also a farmer, she's not open to the idea of me talking to her about agentic AI, artificial general intelligence, all the theoretical background, philosophical background, developing or structuring the development of AI. We have to be precise on how AI is practically proposing an answer to her precise need.
Right.
This is the first framing that we have to handle. When we definitely conclude that, now we have to think about the kernel. And then the kernel, today in Africa, with more than 46% of penetration of mobile in our market, I think solution based on mobile apps are usually the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's concise, it's to the point, and it gets a nod from Oswald as well. And a round of applause, I think, from the audience for my panel, please. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for joining us all the way from Namibia. Thank you for taking time in your schedule to spend time with us.